My name is Jen Lyle, CEO of the Alzheimer's Society BC, and today we're privileged to be joined here by a number of people with lived experience for the panel discussion, Living Life to the Fullest. Before we begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that the Alzheimer's Society BC operates on the unceded and traditional territories of Indigenous peoples around the province. Our provincial office is located on the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, with regional resource centers located on traditional territories in all regions of BC. Our vision for a dementia-friendly province, where people living with dementia and their caregivers are welcomed, included, and supported, will only be possible by ensuring that everyone living on these territories has access to support that is culturally safe, barrier-free, and free from racism. Today's event is part of Alzheimer's Awareness Month, which is recognized across the country every January. Alzheimer's Awareness Month is an invaluable opportunity for us to have important conversations about issues that are relevant to anyone affected by dementia. And it's great to see so many people joining us from around the province today. And I did note that there's a few people who are joining us from outside the province today. So it's wonderful to have you here. To get us started, I'd like to hand things over to our host and moderator for today, Jim Mann. Jim is an advocate and a researcher living with dementia. He's been an incredible supporter and member of the Alzheimer's Society of BC's community since his diagnosis of dementia in 2007. And more recently, he's rejoined our board of directors, where he shares his insights of life with the disease to help shape our strategic direction. Today marks our very first event hosted by someone living with the disease, and I am so pleased to have Jim to be the one to do so. So over to you, Jim.
Thank you so much, Jen. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining our Alzheimer's Awareness Month Lived Experience panel discussion, focusing on living life to the fullest on the dementia journey. And as Jen mentioned, my name is Jim Mann, and I am your moderator today. As Jen noted, this is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and with more than 85,000 people currently living with dementia in the province, it is an important time to shine a spotlight on and give a voice to people living with dementia. And to get us started, I'm excited to introduce our three panelists, all of whom live with a diagnosis of dementia. Their paths are obviously different, which will make for an exciting and insightful webinar. So first, I'm pleased to introduce Art Harrison. Art is a resilient individual facing dementia with determination in his new Vancouver home. After recently moving from the West Kootenay region to be closer to family, and having had a long career in social services and tech support, he started noticing unexpected professional challenges with a family history shaped by Alzheimer's. His diagnosis gave a bit of relief. And I realize, Art, I just read some of what you were supposed to say, so you can finish.
Thanks, Jim. My personal experience is a somewhat complicated one. I spent a considerable portion of my life surrounded by family members who are living with Alzheimer's disease, and actually one with a related, a different thing. My mother and two of my older brothers who have all since died. My eldest sister, who is still living in the Kootenays, and my second oldest brother, who actually has Parkinson's disease, which is, I guess, somewhat related some way. I haven't really read up on that one as much. I've had the opportunity to observe their experiences while living with the disease, and any kind of misconceptions I may have had in the past, that it's just a bad memory or something like that. It's been tempered by the reality of observing their progression and eventual passing in some of their cases, and to a large degree due to the complications of the disease. I'm relatively clear that there's considerable variation in each individual's experience with Alzheimer's, but that there are obvious commonalities as to the decline of memory function and complications that can arise along with that. So it's it's been a part of my life for a long time.
Yes. Thank you, Art. And now we're back on track. Next, we have Lynn Jackson. And from Richmond, BC, Lynn is a longtime advocate who has been living with dementia since the late 1990s and was one of the first people to share her lived experience of the disease at the Alzheimer's Disease International Conference. She's been a tireless advocate and supporter of the society. And in addition to living with the disease herself, Lynn has also been a caregiver for both of her parents who were diagnosed with dementia. And I'm also pleased to introduce David Nickel. David grew up on a large acreage near Coldstream, close to the city of Vernon, and now resides in Chilliwack. David was a dynamic professional and inaugural employee of Costco Canada, excelling in globally sourcing innovative products during his tenure as Vice President of Costco Western Canada. Known for hosting engaging presentations, including a Canadian-themed game show, The Price is Right, at the annual International Costco Conference in Seattle. David has been retired for several years and is now living with dementia. But his earlier career is remembered for a commitment to innovation, quality, and dynamic communication. But before we get started, I'd like to set the stage for today's discussion. After receiving a diagnosis of dementia, there's usually a time taken for reflection that often includes the question, what is dementia and what happens now? From there, the journey that will be different for every person begins. Awareness of dementia increases, adjustments are made, and new experiences, new challenges, and new opportunities will follow. The outcome I wish for everyone is knowledge and support, showing that people with dementia still have a lot to offer their community. And from that support, the person living with dementia will find their purpose. Because who doesn't need a purpose, a reason to get out of bed every morning? Reading the winter edition of Insight, I read that 1 in 2 people in British Columbia believe a dementia diagnosis is the end of a meaningful life. The people I know who are living with dementia are proof that the end is not a part of their agenda. At the time of my diagnosis, my mother was in long-term care, living her own journey with dementia. So I knew what living with dementia was about. But that, of course, was her journey. And now dementia was mine. And it was a whole new experience. The disorientation, the need to understand my new feeling about crowds, understanding the sensory changes caused by dementia, and the adjustments to my activities of daily living, and ultimately coming to grips with the need to keep living and doing so sensibly. Through my mother's experiences, I understood the stigma around dementia and its impact on the individual living with dementia and their family. I'm thankful for this early education because that insight gave me an immediate focus, which I then merged with my business background and my love of volunteering. There was a need, in my opinion, to address stigma, and unfortunately, that need continues. I felt there was a need to educate, well, anyone and everyone. So I rolled up my sleeves and used my experiences and perspectives of living with Alzheimer's to speak what I thought were important messages. Messages like there is life after a diagnosis. We are capable individuals, and we all need a purpose. A consistent message was my recommendation to contact the Alzheimer's Society for up-to-date information and other support services. In fact, I became and am still active with the Alzheimer's Society of BC. And over subsequent years, I've been privileged to add my lived experience voice within various organizations, advising research projects and researchers, and speaking at conferences. I feel privileged to have found my purpose. And on that note, let's get started, shall we? So my first question centers on what I know now I wish I had known then. The stereotypical person living with dementia is very different from each one of us, but may well have been what came to mind after hearing your diagnosis. There are many myths and misunderstandings of what dementia is, who it affects, and how people live with the disease. So, Lynn, first to you. How has your personal experience of dementia challenged common misconceptions and stereotypes of dementia that you had?
Yeah. Well, to begin with, one of my careers was as a registered nurse. So years ago, we saw people with dementia, and it was a stereotypical person that we know or we think of, that many think of, in a wheelchair, drooling, can't walk, can't function. But how I've been able to challenge that is, and I didn't realize until I did get a diagnosis and I was able to start advocating, and I had a life again. I had a purpose. I was able to travel the world with friends, speak internationally, locally, nationally. And it's been, I have always told people that when I worked in emergency, I helped, as a team, save a lot of people's lives. But I think that, not saving people's lives, advocating, but helping them psychologically get through their disease and function every day has been a great blessing. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Lynn. And Art, how has your personal experience of dementia challenged common misconceptions and stereotypes of dementia that you have?
Well, I kind of realized I stomped on that one by answering it after your first inquiry, but such is life.
Yes.
Yeah, it's well, I'm making my way, and somehow I expected it to be more debilitating more quickly. But although I did back out of working on a paid basis, I'm determined that I want to still be involved. I still want to be involved in life, and I want to be involved with, advocating for individuals with Alzheimer's and related diseases. Um, a big part of my working career, was in the social services, and I worked extensively with people with disabilities, and I did see, them advocating for themselves, and I, acted as a support for them through some of that. And I just think it's important that we speak up, and say what it is that we want for ourselves rather than having it, assumed or passed on to us. So that's where I'm getting my fulfillment now is, just through living life and to trying to open people's eyes a little bit about the disease.
That's great. That's good messaging.
Thanks. That was off the cuff. I didn't even go to the script.
Well,
for
there
that.
you go. That's
That's the way to
sometimes
do
the
it.
best messaging too. And finally, David, how has your personal experience of dementia challenged common misconceptions and stereotypes of dementia that you had?
Well, one of the things that I mentioned quite a few times to a lot of people, but I always had a bit of an aversion to the use of the term dementia as opposed to Alzheimer's or memory loss. And because I always conjured up pictures in my mind of those old cartoons I used to see with the prisoner with rags and scratching on the wall of the cell that they're in, and that were dementia. But so that was one thing. But as far as people having other issues, I don't recall having any, big negative conceptions about them. But when it started to initially, when I had was told of the diagnosis, I was a little bit reluctant to immediately, tell everybody. But I didn't take too long. I became quite open to tell people. That's why I forgot your name from 2 weeks ago at the gym, because I've got either I'll say I got dementia or I've got memory loss issues or whatever. So, but quite open about it to people, and I hope in turn they are to me and to others too, because I think it's better than holding it inside your chest or your brain.
And in fact, that helps to challenge the stereotype, challenge the stigma.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
and I do try to use humor quite a bit in my with my issues too. So, for instance, I say that the dementia does help on things like I enjoy the gym, but I also enjoy golfing, and it helps me there because I'll forget a few strokes and get a better score. So.
See, there's always a bright
strategy.
side.
Yeah.
Always a bright side. Thank
But
you,
the guys
David.
that I play with are all great, and they know. And yeah, I've never had one single issue of any negative stuff. Have fun.
That's good. That's good. Well, thanks. That was a great start, actually, to the panel. So thank you. So just like we just did, they say laughter is the best medicine, and that a person should be open to new experiences, both of which are far-fetched ideas in the minds of many people. But in fact, we can find joy, even if it is walking in our own neighborhoods and stopping to smell the roses. I've taken photos on my walks of beautiful roses, glistening spider webs, and walking paths, and then posted them on Twitter. And that really does bring me happiness. So Art, let's start with you. And I'm wondering, what are some moments of joy you found since receiving a diagnosis of dementia?
As I said, I got some relief just by getting a definite diagnosis. It just explained why I was struggling with things. But as you said, I just even just going out for walks, I try to be a little bit more intentional about observing the world around me. I like being out and walking around the city and in our neighborhood, just coming across children being kids. I haven't been blessed with any grandchildren yet, and I hope my 2 daughters and 2 stepdaughters are listening to this. But it's just being out and seeing kids being kids. They're pure beings. They express everything that's going through their minds without any kind of filter. They're curious and they're open, unlike many adults become.
Mhm.
And I like seeing people out just walking their dogs, and even in this neighborhood, sometimes cats, which I never saw before. But dogs are just dogs, and they're they're goofy and just just animals. They got no pretensions of anything else, right? They're just dogs. And cats are like, they're like beings from another world or something, you know. You just never know what they're thinking. Um, I like seeing any kind of wildlife, you know, just for much the same reason. Uh, and I also love experience the weather in all its variations, you know, which since we moved down to the coast hasn't been rain all the time, much to my surprise. It's just, you know, it's one of the things in life that are just completely beyond us, you know, that we have no control over. And I think it's important to learn to accept those kind of things, and, you know, understand that that's our reality on this planet. We don't have control over an awful lot of things, and we have to learn to accept them, you know, in spite of our, you know, misconceptions of our own importance. So it's just learning to live, you know, and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Accept and also adapt to
Yeah.
anything that comes
Well
along,
said, yeah.
like
Yeah.
a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And David, what are some moments of joy you've found since receiving a diagnosis of dementia?
Well, one of them is just the fact of us moving from New Westminster to Chilliwack was, and we had a great community, a lot of friends, and you know, my wife was a lacrosse coach, and you know, New West, that's everything, right? So, yeah, moved out to Chilliwack. The traffic would take you, we're a quarter mile to the freeway, and it would take you 15 minutes or to half an hour to get there. So, and then crawl. And it's not like that out here. It's just more relaxation, and it's a nice feeling. And we were just kind of kicking tires, not really thinking. And we rented this house up on Chilliwack Mountain, and walked in, and the view was so stunning over the river and the mountains, and we were just done with it. And so been very happy ever since. And again, it's so nice. It's about 8-minute drive to the gym from there, and 14 minutes to the golf course. And I had to turn in my license because of the disease. So that was very, pissed me off quite a bit that I had to do that, but made sense. If something ever happened, that would not look good, even though I never had an accident in 52 years. But regardless, it's easy. Fortunately, the Uber started in Chilliwack around the time that we moved here, so at least I got that easy to get me when Janet can't give me a ride, whatever. So that's been good. There was something I'm going to say at the end of that. Oh, yeah. So anyway, I definitely enjoy it. So, and it's a happy environment. And then the other one that came quite recently for joy is my got 4 kids, but my three boys, the youngest one gave me a call that they're expecting the first baby, so I'll be a grandparent by in May. So that's another big joy.
That is great joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it for me, I think.
Oh, good. Thank you, David. And last but not least, Lynn, what are some moments of joy you found since receiving a diagnosis?
I have to say that what the examples that you 3 have given are all very important, and I really take the moments to stop and smell the roses, enjoy a sunset, whatever, ice cream cone. But I've had a little bit more time to do some advocacy work than the other 2. And one of the first joys was to see in New Zealand at the Alzheimer's Disease International Conference, a colleague of mine with dementia was the first person with dementia to give a plenary speech. And that was the first in the world. So that was very joyful and important occasion. And since then, Alzheimer's Disease International has had people with dementia speaking at all their conferences, and it's filtered around the world. So that's been a great joy for me. The other one is pardon me. Many of you know the book Still Alice. Lisa Genova wrote that book. I know Lisa Genova in that when I was first diagnosed, a group I was involved with starting called Dementia Advocacy and Support Network International. We had a chat room and Lisa Genova would come every day for months and months. And she wanted to know what it was like to live with dementia. So she learned from us in that room, us diagnosed, and we can hear our words all throughout the book and the movie. And so that was another great thing that happened.
Then can I just ask where was that? Where?
Well, it was virtually.
Where?
It was in a chat.
Virtually.
Yeah.
But you said okay.
Yeah. I have met Lisa Genova 3 times in person though, when she come to Vancouver. So anyway, the other thing is that when I was diagnosed, my doctor told me, like doctors tell a lot of people, well, you better get your affairs in order. A lot of them stop at that, but mine said, you know, Lynn, you like to travel and your treatment, your medications are very portable. Just put them in your carry-on and away you go. And luckily I had the means that I was able to travel with friends around the world to I'd go to different Alzheimer's conferences and friends would come with me and we'd take a couple-week vacation after that. And I can say I've been to 35 countries now, not all of them since I was diagnosed, because I did have a job that I worked and did fly around a lot in South America. But that's been a great joy for me. Another one was, well, a big one. When I was first diagnosed, finally, the Alzheimer's Society of BC got an in-person, real life in-person where we met in a room support group. And for years we met there until COVID. And but it would be time after time, people in that group would say how much hearing other people's stories and being together helped them. And it was just so fulfilling to be able to experience that and to know that we helped each other and people were living better lives because they got tips and ideas and felt supported. The other thing was I would go to Alzheimer's disease international conferences around the world and with our group, and we would have a booth. And very often people from other Alzheimer's societies from around the world would come to our booth and say, well, you're a part of a support group. How do you start a support group? And we'd say, well, you need 2 or 3 or more people, some cookies and coffee and tea is good. And they'd go back to their country, and then the next year I'd see them and they say, oh, we started a support group for people and they're so happy. And I hear that year after year. So that was a really great thing. And then my last one that Jim and I have been working on is the Flipping Stigma project, the toolkit to help combat the stigma associated with the diagnosis of dementia. And that has been one of the most fulfilling things I've worked on, and it's going to travel around the world and help a lot of people. So that's been, who would think after having a diagnosis of dementia that you could do all these things and help so many people? It's been really quite great. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's great. That I think helps just hearing your examples and what you've done, I think will inspire so many other people, just realizing that it is a journey and there are many potential years of really doing things meaningfully and engaging and being active. So thank you. That's very good. So the Society offers a range of programs and services from the Dementia Helpline to in-person support groups. And of course, through the many pages of help and support offered through the various sections on the website, alzheimerbc.org. A favorite of mine was the in-person support group that met over breakfast at a local restaurant. I valued that experience, but also valued the opportunity to connect in a restaurant with others who were living with a diagnosis of dementia. We were at various stages, but we listened, we learned, and we connected, which I think you all have talked about is so valuable. David, staying engaged in your community is so important. And I'd be interested to know how supports like the Alzheimer's Society of BC's programs and early stage support groups have helped you stay engaged.
Well, certainly just the fact of having the group here, or where we meet to get together and share is huge for me. But and like I say, I try to engage as many people as I can, whether it's going for walks and wherever I go. So I don't let it out of my head or brain. So in
In advocacy activities and research. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on what role the Society's programs and services have played in your staying engaged in the community.
Well, the society was pivotal in me starting being involved in advocacy activities. When I was first diagnosed, we did get that in-person support group. Took a while, that's another story, but finally we got it, and that helped me a lot to come to grips with my diagnosis, for sure, to be with other people. And then, when I one of the first gigs, I say, well, the first gig I ever had was the Alzheimer's Society of Saskatchewan wanted me to come and speak to them at one of their functions in January. And I had to write a speech and a presentation. And, being a registered nurse from the old school, not going to university or anything, I wasn't used to doing that sort of thing, and wasn't really my forte. Luckily, Barbara Lindsay at the Alzheimer's Society, and also a volunteer who had been a CBC journalist, a retired person or journalist, they helped me write my presentations for the various talks that I was to give for the Alzheimer's Society and for other talks around the world. So that was very helpful for me. Yeah, I can't say enough how much in-person support groups were helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Good. Thank you. Art, I will ask you the same question. I think you've supported the Society's advocacy and research initiatives. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on what role the Society's programs and services have played in your staying engaged in the community.
My involvement with the society was somewhat limited to a degree because I was living in the Kootenays, and it's, not a major population center. Nice place, but just not a major population center. So most of my engagement was online. But that's what gave me a start in just getting to know the other people involved in the organization, start to get an idea of some of the resources that were available, and it also gave me ideas of what to do once I moved down to the coast. The different sort of areas that I could look into to see about staying involved. It's been, it's still a journey. It's an ongoing journey. My whole move down here was a massive transition for me because going from I've been coming down to the coast all my life, basically, but to actually move here was quite a shift. So it was a process of familiarizing myself with the area, with transit.
Mhm.
In the Kootenays, you've got to walk for 5 kilometers to catch a bus, but it's been good. It's challenged me in some ways. It's definitely kept me more active.
Mhm.
But being in touch with the society, it's giving me an opportunity to stay involved and become involved in a different way than I was with my family members, where I was
Mhm.
more or less just an observer. um, so it's been good. Obviously, I don't have much to say to any of the scientists that are developing new pharmaceuticals and stuff like that, other than to maybe try to limit some of the side effects.
Yes, that's right.
But hopefully, I'll learn more and I'll become more involved with the other people in the society as time goes on.
Mhm. Mhm.
Jim, can I just add to that?
Yeah.
One of the things I forgot to mention was the Alzheimer's Society of BC was the first Alzheimer's society in the whole world to put a person diagnosed with dementia on their board of directors. So
Oh.
that's a really big thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, moving in itself, Art, is challenging. And so I can well imagine some of the challenges that you were experiencing in your move, especially to the city and so on. So
Yeah.
glad you're here.
Yeah, I used to have about 2,000 square feet of garden, 2,500 square feet of
Yeah.
garden that we worked, and that's what kept me fit. Here, it's just walking to get places, because I also surrendered my license because
Mhm.
I didn't want the responsibility, and I didn't want to have that concern.
Yeah,
I was still driving all right, but every once in a while, especially in the city,
that's
I'm
right.
used to being like the only car on the road. Here, that is not the case. So you know, uh, but now I'm getting out. I'm walking around the city. I'm getting my exercise that way, and it's been good. It's been good.
Wonderful. So thank you all. This is great fun. Um, it's been good, a good discussion. So the society's webinars are known for their information sharing. And I'd like to think having really great moderators as well. So I would be remiss in not asking each of you what practical tips and strategies you found effective in living well with dementia. And David, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I think I touched a bit on it, but earlier, but the physical exercise is really big for me, and so I'll do weights and cardio at the gym pretty regularly, almost every day, but at least 5 days a week. And it does when I come back, I feel so much clear-headed for quite a while. It's it's a big help from me. And I mentioned earlier, walking with tunes also perks me up a lot, that kind of thing. And other parts of diet. I wasn't eating bad before, but I'm just making extra sure, like things, just make sure it's good, lots of proper proteins and stuff. And and I think I touched on it earlier in past when I was working with Costco, and you have this nice 12-hour days and or long trips, and after the trip you're back, or you're traveling from one place to another, and then you go to the hotel room and have a couple of beer afterwards, and that was a pretty regular routine for a long time. So I stopped that for and it's obviously, besides for so many reasons, but the disease itself plus the medications, it doesn't, they don't work together. So it's been good that way. It's good. It's good. Had to take a while to adjust to that change, but it I feel good about it, and it's and I'm healthier as a result. So
that's good. That's good. Thank you. Lynn, what about you? What practical tips and strategies have you found effective in living well with dementia?
Well, after I came to grips with my diagnosis, which isn't an easy thing for many of us, because you go through all the different stages, like denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance, back to bargaining. Anyway, once I came to acceptance, I found that it
you know, 5 kilometers a day isn't unusual. Sometimes quite a bit more than that if we, go into the, other sections of town and whatnot. Today we walked across the Burrard Street Bridge and, got in a couple extra K there. So, I mean, I think all those things are helpful. Limiting alcohol intake definitely, was a good thing. And I think I can hear my wife clapping in the background. But
Didn't happen overnight for me either, but
no, but most things that you have to work at don't.
yeah.
So it is a process.
Yeah.
Wheat, well, my wife used to be a vegetarian, so I don't eat anywhere near as much meats and things like that. Fish, more fish, which is a lot easier here at the coast. But it's just, getting the amount of rest I need, keeping the exercise up, and trying to make sure the people around me know that I really care for them, even if sometimes I get a little snappish, because sometimes, I forget stuff and they remind me, and I mean, part of that's part of life. So
Yeah.
it's just accepting life,
Yeah.
it's, I think we have to accept it however it comes to us. You can't change the world, you can't change reality. So it's just live with it and carry on. I read a lot of philosophy too, different types of philosophy, which, helps remind me to just let go of the little stuff.
That's
and,
right.
Try to be intentional about what you do. That was a pop, it wasn't me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And Outlook calendar is one of the best inventions as far as I'm concerned too. And with the alarm and everything, it's certainly keeps me on track. So thank you all for your responses. So building on your previous answers, one final question. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on how others, including care partners and the broader community, provide meaningful support for people living with this disease. And Lynn, do you want to take a stab at that first?
I think that a very important support that friends, family, and care partners can give to a person diagnosed is to let them be as autonomous as possible. Let people diagnosed do as much, if not all, that they were able to do before. Maybe not drive, but certainly, can dry the dishes, can mop the floor, those sort of things. Just keep as active as possible. And I have found that if a person is treated as an invalid, they will act as an invalid. So if the care partner treats the person as an invalid, then the person diagnosed, takes advantage of that, and then they don't do things, and then they decline. So I mean, that's a really big thing that I've noticed. We diagnosed need to be able to spread our wings with minimal limitations so that our life is as normal as possible, and so that we can have happy and productive lives. And if you let us do as much as possible for as long as possible, hopefully that is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Art, talk to us. Don't make assumptions about any individual. Oh, pardon me. Art, how about you? This is why I use this, all the time to keep track on which line, but I didn't there.
Well, that was actually something that I learned when I was working in the disabilities field. You know, I was providing one-to-one support for individuals with all sorts of disabilities. Um, and some of them were quite severe. Some of them you would hardly know that they had any kind of a disability. But they had a group called People First, and they met on a local, provincial, and national level. And you know, I would go along as a support with them, and it was just you know really important to them and to me as a support to hear them saying what was important to them. Because as a support worker, you know, I might have imagined any number of things that, you know, I could do to help them out and be condescending at the same time. But it was important that, you know, well, with us, like, you know, I had written down, talk to us. Don't make assumptions about any individual, in spite of whatever diagnosis they may have, in spite of how far they've progressed with their disease. We're people. Regardless of how far we may be in our journey, we still deserve the same amount of respect and understanding that any person should be afforded. You know, we're people too, you know.
Yeah.
It's that's it.
Very good. Well said. And finally, David.
Yeah, I think pretty much on the same tone, but I think I answered earlier, but it's for people dealing with us that don't treat any of us as because of the disease of any lesser, that we're any lesser person, or tend to avoid them because of the disease. And when I said, I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't do that to a friend of yours that contracted a disease like cancer. So, you know, why do it to this disease?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, very much. So we're approaching the our end of the panel. But before we wrap up, I'd like to give you all of you a chance to give closing remarks and have a bit of an open conversation. So Art, do you want to start us off? But otherwise, it's have a conversation for a few minutes.
I'm just happy to be involved. And volunteering and working with people and for people has always been a part of my life. So having an opportunity to do this with the Alzheimer's Society, you know, to some extent I'm helping myself too, but it feels good for me to be involved, to actually, you know, be doing something. And if I can make that my work, even if it's, you know, volunteer work, I think that's an important thing in life. You know, you have to have something. I can only play so many video games. So, you know, I think it's important.
You could try to beat the young fellow with in that Tetris game.
Oh, no, no, no. No, I just do the ones with the, you know, the dragons and, you know,
Oh, okay.
fighting guys and stuff like that. It's just, you know, pure fantasy.
Oh dear.
I
I agree with.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Well, I think that, you know, who would have known that after a diagnosis of dementia, you could live life as well as what I've been able to do, and sounds like the other panelists also. And I'm so thankful to have friends and family that have been supportive of me, and that, you know, having the Alzheimer's Society there for me to give me a chance to do something, to feel like I'm helping and to help. And then once, you know, like Art just said, helping others, you help yourself, and that's really important. And you need to have that. So I've really found that the advocacy work, although I've helped a lot of people, it has really helped me to stay well, and that's really a good thing.
Mhm. Mhm. David, you
I
were
I just gonna add just a bit about that, helping others, just to concur with that, how good that feels. One of the things was, I spent quite a few years coaching quite young kids with soccer teams, and from quite a young age, some of them were like or when it started, they were in the, 7, 8, 9-year-old range. So it was like herding cats the whole time, but it was worth it. You could see that, and I got so many comments from the parents, just, so much thanks for how, it's helped the kids and from them themselves. And, it makes them feel good. It makes me feel good, and all of it. So we're just one of those things. Yeah, whenever something else comes along to help out, whether it's even just helping neighbors on the street when you see them struggling with some snow or something like that, jump out and help out. It just always feels good, right?
Yeah. And what you said, I think both you and Art, both you, Lynn, and Art talked about, helping others, you help yourself. I think by helping others, you also will sometimes learn more about the disease and learn more about living with the disease. And that's certainly been my experience. And so that in so many cases, it becomes that win-win rather than just helping other people. You learn along the way as well. And some of those lessons are some you would never have learned otherwise. But I also, you had said, Lynn, who knew that you could do these things after a diagnosis? And certainly for me, I did a little bit of writing when I was in business, but more position papers or that type of thing. But I've written a number of peer-reviewed articles and being a part of others that who knew that would ever happen, and I would never have expected it at any time. So there is so much to learn, and being open to those opportunities, being open to trying something new is can be inspiring, can be I don't know, again, makes you feel good.
I've also written through most of my life, actually. And I worked at a newspaper for a few years as a reporter, which was an interesting experience. But I've also started recently working on Substack. It's a new online sort of writing forum that there's all sorts of different people. There's Margaret Atwood. It's not just me there, I promise. But I've found just writing, I haven't been as consistent with it as I should be, but it's a good way of just, putting myself out there a bit, but also writing through things, the things that I sit around mulling over rather than just mulling them over. Sometimes I can write them out, and some of it, actually a significant amount has been about my adventure, in Alzheimer's disease. Actually, adventure is probably an unusual way to describe it, but
yeah,
some days are.
yeah, they are.
No, I think it's a pretty good word for adventure.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to discover. You know, hey, I didn't know I had that pair of socks.
That's right.
That's
But
the other one.
yeah, I find writing to be helpful, and that's one of the ways I'm kind of putting myself out there. But I think I've got a total of about 70 followers now.
Oh,
Oh,
good for you. Good for you.
Maybe not good for them, but we'll find out.
well,
Yeah.
sure it is. Good for you. Yeah,
It's-
I'm doing writing for my own sake, and I'm filling a few little books too, but but I haven't been putting it out in the public at this point. But although I do with some things with friends and that,
Mhm.
but yeah, but it's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it's healthy to do.
Yeah, I think so. I
And
think
I exercise my brain with I always go with numbers too, so I do that exercise because I can still, even though I can't remember something from last week, but I can still multiply like 27 times 132 in my head with like in 10 seconds I can do it.
yeah,
Good for
But
you.
yeah,
that's
I can always
definitely
do that.
not my strength.
Yeah, I
Oh,
can always
that's
do that. So yeah, somebody's not going to shaft me in a store with a deal with the pricing. Yeah,
Wow.
but
Hey,
yeah,
Jim, it's Taylor here. Before you guys start to get into other stuff, I've got some questions for you guys to answer from our viewers.
Okay.
So put you on the spot. So Roberta wants to know, and Lynn, this might be you because you're the kind of the travel one of the group. But Roberta wants to know, for traveling, how do you prepare for a trip, and is there a better time to travel versus a bad time to travel? How do you guys go about preparing for that?
Well, I've heard some disaster stories of care partners traveling with their spouses or whatever with dementia. So, I mean, I think the first thing is that you have to, the person has to want to go. So it's not something that, you're dragging them along just because you want to go to Mexico Riviera. That's not going to work if they don't want to go. So that's one of the preparations. I've always found, like they say, getting a flight early in the morning, although I'm not an early person, but it's better because if your flight's delayed or whatever, you've got more chances to get on a flight and get to where you want to go later on in the day. I've also, for example, going to somewhere where an event starts a day or two later after you leave, I always give myself a day or so buffer so that in case of cancellations or lost luggage, all that's happened to me, that they can catch up to you hopefully before you start your cruise or your bus trip or whatever. Yeah, I think a lot of planning, and while you're traveling, to try and keep, not to overextend and because things are going to be new and different. So try and keep, a lot of things as normal as possible. Like I take my things that give me a little bit of comfort from home that are just yeah, well, just things that just small things that I can have that are just brings me comfort from home and are usual for me.
Thanks, Lynn. Jim, you got one?
I just would add that it would, I think, be helpful to keep talking about the trip, so that there is that preparation in mind about going to the airport, going through the airport system. Because that's always been a challenge. It's a challenge for most people, but it can be more of a challenge for people with dementia, because it's not something you do every day. And so to I don't know, not make a big deal about it, but just to talk about it, to reinforce that this is where we're going, and there is, you know, the crowds and everything else, just so that there is that, okay, this is where we're going, and
Another thing too, Jim, that I know friends of mine and I've done is that you can ask the staff or arrange with the airline to be able to have pre-boarding so that you're not going in on with the big rush, and then you can wait in your seat and then go off later at a quieter time when people are having disembarked. So that's also a helpful tip.
yes, that's what I do all the time, is I just go up and I have to pre-board. I have Alzheimer's, and they're very good about it. They become much better at it. So,
Art and David, do you guys have anything, or do you want me to go to the next question?
The only traveling I've done is coming down here. And that was moving house, so that was, you know.
An easy one. Nona wants to know if each of you live with a partner or other form of support within your home.
I do.
Yeah, my wife's here. She's my memory, and
Yeah.
I try to do as much as I can around the house to help out. She also is still working. She's working online, but so I have to be quiet sometimes. But yeah, it's, you know, it's life.
I
My
am.
wife, my wife's a good timekeeper, so because I'll often lose track of time, including even today coming to this meeting. I was doing some stuff in the garage, putting stuff up in the away in the top and on the grill ladder and stuff. And we were supposed to be leaving in 3 minutes. Okay, yeah. So we made it on time, but yeah, I probably wouldn't have otherwise.
When I was first diagnosed, I had to move back from where I was living in the States and live with my mom and dad because I wasn't functioning well, and until I got onto medications and I have a wonderful doctor that just has me ticking along as I am now. But anyway, my father passed away. My mother moved into a care facility, and I moved over to Vancouver Island because my majority of my friends are here. So that's where my support is now, as is my mom over here on the island with my brother. So I do live on my own. If I have problems, it's just a phone call away that I can get help. Yeah.
We have time for just one more. Leah wants to know, how do you guys go about planning for the future with the changes that may be ahead?
I think it's just one day at a time for me, really. I mean, it's nice to have some, and I think it's important to have some goals for the future if you want that, long-term goals. But you know, those aren't always achievable, and who knows with our diagnosis how fast we're going to progress. I think it's good to have some short-term goals also, but basically one day at a time, just live each life to the fullest.
With me, you know, moving down here was part of the plan. Getting into a smaller space, much smaller, then you know, easier to take care of. We're closer to my wife's oldest daughter, you know, so she's got some support as she supports me. It's also closer to you know, medical facilities and whatnot, which is important. Trying to simplify things a little bit, you know. Well, I mean, I made the preemptive decision to surrender my license, and it may sound a little bit, you know, but I had a nightmare about driving in. I was in a big dump truck, and I was driving through traffic, and I was crashing into things, and people were being killed and stuff like that. And then about 2 weeks after that, I had another one about car accidents, and it was after that you know, that's enough of a hint for me. You know, I didn't want the responsibility of having to live, if I lived, with having hurt somebody else like that. So, you know, we talked it over and eventually came to the conclusion it was a good idea. Other than that, it's taking the meds, trying to stay active, and like I say, just accepting life for what it is. That's important.
Just relating taking the meds, I would just say briefly is I don't know if any or all of you have some of the symptoms you get from the couple of the pills I know that I take that give me like sometimes crazy nightmares, not nightmares so much, but just like vivid dreams.
Yeah.
And actually, if I almost get some like actually like during a day where it just get like it feels like it's about a 15 seconds or 20 seconds, or it's like getting like a spacey thing where you get recalling a dream from the night before, but it just lasts like 15 seconds or something. It's weird, and the doctor that they've attributed it to one of the couple of the 11 pills I'm taking, but so
Yeah, I did notice that with the dreams, vivid
Yeah.
dreams,
Yeah.
very, you know, vivid and, you know, present dreams, you know, that are, yeah, it's unusual.
Wish you could tape them.
Are they, I'm curious if are they memory related?
One like, so I might say one's modafinil, I think it's called. I think that's a memory one, and the other one is Trintellix.
No, but the dreams, are they sort of memory related?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Not mine
Yeah.
so much.
Oh,
It's just they're extremely vivid.
yeah, yeah.
It's like free cable.
Yes, that's right. That's right. See, you turn everything into a positive. I find that I have dreams that are memory related, where I'm like in a building and I don't remember how to get to the elevator, or I get down to the main level and don't remember how to get back to the hotel or something.
Hmm.
Some of them can be quite disturbing.
Mm.
So what else, Taylor?
You're good to give your closing remarks now,
Okay.
Jim, if you'd like. Go for it.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. I think we've had a great discussion this afternoon. Thank you to Lynn and David and Art for your personal insights and tips, many of which I'm quite sure will be dinner table discussions tonight and throughout this new year. I think many of the points have been important points for people on the call or on the at this attending the webinar who have dementia, but also caregivers or perhaps in a related service, that tips that will be handy for them to make them feel comfortable, or make some to sit back and, oh yeah, like maybe this should happen, or maybe this could happen. So I'm really really happy with the discussion that we had, and I thank you for that. And, you know, the society is beyond grateful to have all of you join us today. And thank everybody for attending the webinar. It has been an important conversation and to talk about the changes that continue and will continue in our lives. The one thing that I did want to point out to people attending the today's webinar is we do have a number of recordings of past webinars if people are interested, and they are available on the on-demand webpage on the alzheimerbc.org site. And there's a quick link if they want to go to alzbc.org/on-demand. So there's some good past webinars that may be good references. So if people have a question or a concern that hasn't been addressed, I encourage anyone to email livedexperience@alzheimerbc.org, and we'll be able to hopefully where you can share your stories and experiences or ask a question. And so now I'd like to toss it back to you, Jen, our CEO, for closing remarks.
Thanks so much, Jim. And I couldn't agree more. One of the things you said at the start was we have really good moderators for these webinars, and I thank you for keeping us to that high bar today. Thank you so much for your excellent job in moderating this discussion. Thank you again so much to you, Lynn, to you, Art, and to you, David, for taking part in today's event. And also, if you'd like to learn more about the Alzheimer's Awareness Month, you can visit our website at www.alzheimerbc.org. And of course, you can always call the First Link Dementia Helpline for information and support. The numbers are there on the screen. Thank you again from everyone here at the Alzheimer's Society of BC, and I hope you have a great day.